hear us? Do you see us?
Hey, I
Hey!
can hear you.
Wow, that might be the smoothest virtual start we've ever had.
I know there's always a little bit of like, hold on, okay, let's fix something.
How you doing?
Oh, maybe fix me.
No, you're perfect.
I'm doing good. It's
Yeah.
good to see you.
Good
Yeah,
to see you too, Brian.
Are you in Southern California right now at home? Where are you?
I am. I am. I was just up in Montana scouting for a movie last week and made a little stop in Portland for a couple of days. But yeah, I'm back home.
Nice.
Super cool. Can we know about the movie in Montana?
Um, sure. I got about five movies I'm talking to and just waiting for one of them to, get their actors and their money.
Sick.
This one's a period western, 1870s ish. Actually set in Nevada, but filmed in Montana is the plan. And so we just basically making sure that we locked in the key locations, and then the other locations would happen once it gets funded.
Got you. So we should say for people, you're a producer. Um, so these movies are like someone wrote a script. There's some funding, so it's like let's get something going. But you're waiting for like a distributor to pick it up. Like what are like the stages that you go through where you'd be looking at locations, but it's not yet like greenlit or something?
Yeah, that one's a little odd, but we did that because there was a way to do it, and as long as we had the key locations in place, then we could budget it. Because in Montana, there are a couple locations you could film whole movies at. Otherwise, you're all over the place, and so the all over the place nature of it kind of we had to figure out the bad guy would be a big actor, so we have to kind of squish their work into as limited period as possible. So it was, how many different locations can we have without having to move the crew too many times?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Moving, your trucks and all that from one location to another isn't the biggest deal in the world. But once you uproot everybody from, housing and office space and storage and that sort of thing, and move to a completely another place is you can spend your time filming or you can spend your time moving. And so the idea was to try to limit that as much as possible, so we're not wasting time moving and instead filming. So
It's a
Nice.
lot
that
of
was that one.
logistics.
Yeah, and it's crazy
Exactly.
like
And
what a role logistics play. It's so important. It's kind of probably the last thing most people think about who just love watching movies or whatever. You think, hey, you got all this time, all this money, you got like whatever. What's
Unless
the
you're in
problem?
the industry.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't realize like how much just trying to figure out logistics of, especially if you have a big actor, like we need to get them in and out in 2 weeks. Like, how do we do that? How do we shoot their entire role in 2 weeks? Or
So let me ask, the motivation to film in Montana instead of Nevada, is that just better labor laws, better tax breaks? Like because they don't
well,
look alike per se.
I can't speak to the writer on that. It was his choice to do that. And there are a lot of films shot in Montana, and there are several Western ranches there, so that's an option.
mm,
New Mexico always comes to mind for me.
Mm.
Silverado was one of my favorite Westerns in my lifetime, and and that was shot there. So in New Mexico. So that would be another place that I would think to look, but they wanted to shoot in Montana for that one.
Hmm.
And I've got one that would shoot in Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Mexico, and let's see, another one in Montana, and I got two more, but drawing a blank on those.
mm-hmm.
Um, but to get back to your process question, so two of the movies are working on getting letters of intent from actors, which
Okay.
will get them a distributor, which will get them the money from the people that they've already lined up that will fund it. So it's in the case of a couple of those movies, that's their process. Um, the other process is that's loosely the process is basically you've got to a director, which will get you actors, along with a good script, which will hopefully unleash the money. But sometimes the money goes about it from their side of the equation. So these are all independent films. So for the last 3 years, I was doing the TV series Yellowstone. So that was studio driven. So
yeah, working Yellowstone,
is,
I assume is a pretty like endless budget, right? I mean, you're kind of like, especially now once it's a hit, you're sort of, or am I totally wrong there?
no, a much bigger budget, that's for sure. I mean, the mandate on that show is that, we're making a feature every week. And so that show costs more than a show shooting, half on the lot and half on location, say here in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that show's a Western, but it's a modern Western. So, the costs are somewhat that we're way up in Montana on location. That's pretty huge because you take an entire crew up there and you've got to house them and feed them and rent cars and sometimes hotels on top of the whatever housing that we've gotten for them already, because we then go on location within the location. So sometimes that can be a big deal. And we did episodes where we brought helicopters in from all around the country and turned them into other types of helicopters. And you rent 1,000 head of cattle. You got to get them to wherever you're going, and then you've got to use them and then send them back. So things like that just cost.
Wow, so you
I
do
wouldn't
end up
have thought
needing
of
like a
that.
real
Yeah,
cowboy to move the cattle
yeah.
for the film.
Yeah,
Sure.
those are some talented extras. They're not just standing around; they're
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, that's true. And okay, for like Yellowstone, where it's like we're going to treat it like we're shooting a feature every week. Like how long does it take then to shoot a whole season? What's a season, like 8 episodes, 12 episodes?
That varied. That varied all both seasons that we did that I was on. 5A we did 3 years ago, and then last year we did 5B. So it was 8 episodes in 2022, and then 6 episodes for this sort of the season finale.
Okay, 5A.
And then before that, a lot of times they were 10 episodes.
5A, 5B. Why not 5, 6? Like,
good question.
What's the difference? Especially if they're that far apart.
When I came aboard 3 years ago, season 5 was 14 episodes.
Okay.
But we only filmed 8. And I can't speak to exactly why that was. Part of that's probably, the scripts and where they were. And part of that was Kevin's schedule.
Right. Okay. So there was an initial intention, like we'll shoot them all in a row, but for whatever reason, logistically, it became like we're going to have to actually split these up.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then Kevin got very busy with Horizon,
Which we still haven't watched. We haven't seen
No,
any of this.
we've not.
You're behind.
I'm way
further behind than me. We got to catch you up.
I know. I didn't really watch Yellowstone, but we got super into like 1883 and 1923.
81 and 1881.
What are the numbers? Did you watch those at all?
1883 and 1923.
shoot.
Yeah, they're both terrific shows.
They were
Yeah.
fantastic.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
And so that's really kicked off like this whole, the fact that you're working on other Westerns and them having a shot at being made is, do you think because Yellowstone was such a hit, like that's kind of made this genre very relevant right now? Or was that always the case? Everybody always loves cowboys.
No, it comes and goes. In Montana, there's a lot of Westerns that get shot just because of the virtue of some of the old towns that exist there. So, before I started on Yellowstone back in 2021, I did a Nick Cage Western called Butcher's Crossing. And I had been a fan of Yellowstone when I was scouting in Southwest Montana. Of course, I went by the ranch and took pictures like everybody else does.
Nice.
And then did the Nick Cage Western. And that was his first Western that was released, but that was his second Western to be shot because we did it in the fall. In the summer of 2021, they did another Western at Yellowstone Movie Ranch, which is sort of north of Yellowstone National Park in a place called Immigrant.
Got you.
I think the
So
last
there,
time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's a lot of westerns that shoot there that movie ranch. It's unique amongst a lot of movie ranches in that it's built to be kind of new, which is something that I kind of like about it.
Hmm.
That town of Immigrant was I think it was a gold mining town or a mining town anyway, and it was only ever around for 12 years, so it never got older than 12 years.
Mm.
And a lot of Western towns in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, how old could they have been? 20 years. One of the Western towns
Yeah.
that's shot a lot in Montana is called Nevada City, just right next to Virginia City. And Nevada City, all the buildings are about 150 years old. There was no building 150 years old in the American West in the late 1800s.
Sure.
But our minds go to the idea of, well, it's old, right?
Right.
So, it was an interesting idea when they built that town.
Wow.
So part of that is why I like that town.
How neat. What a fun gig. I'm sure it comes with an endless stress as well, but it sounds just so fun. The last time we saw you, I think you told me that Taylor Sheridan wrote the script for 1883 in like 2 weeks. That haunted me.
That's what I understood. Yeah.
Hi.
What I understood was that he had the gist of the story, and then at some point he just figured out
Yeah.
the emotional through line for it, and then that's what kind of unlocked it for him.
By golly, he did. You know, that tornado scene, just powerful stuff.
Yeah, and we were watching the show, like the narration. That's some of the best narration of anything I've ever seen. Like the lead, the daughter talking throughout the series, like just the poetry kind of everything she's saying. It was so, I don't know. I was
and
really
then they
impressed.
kept her on as the narrator for the following season. Too,
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is
In
kind of
23, she
interesting.
was.
Little thread.
One thing I was curious. So like, you do these independent films that like you're limited on time, limited on budget. Then something like Yellowstone, a lot more to work with. What are the challenges that come with more? Like when you have more money, more time, does that create any conflicts that just you don't really deal with an independent, like a restricted budget?
Well, early in my career, I didn't get hired for a big feature, having done a couple of TV movies at that point in my career. And the reason I didn't get hired, I was told, was that I'm too used to having to use a wrench for everything. A wrench, a screwdriver, a hammer. It was all done with a wrench because that's all we had. And they were used to having, like, what tools do you need? We'll get them. That's what we need. That's what we'll get. Um, and so the features that I'm hoping to do later this year, we have some tools, but we don't have all the tools that you would get with a Yellowstone. But sometimes it's getting the tools, but being creative about how you get them or where you get them, or maybe we're sharing them with another show. So yeah, it's really just a matter of how we're going to do it, as opposed to can we? Whereas sometimes on an indie film, it's more of is this even possible with what we have? And I guess part of the fun for me is figuring that out. Is how do we do it, or how do we save in areas that are unimportant or seemingly unimportant, so that we can have the helicopter day, or we can have the crane day, or how can we afford to do something or be more inventive with, let's say, on this new Western, they want to do some inventive rigs for cameras near horses. Okay, how do we do that? How do we try that? And how would the horses react to that? Because they're obviously not a car. You just don't attach things to them and go run.
Right. Yeah.
So, and on a show like Yellowstone, we're more likely to have done those things before. We have a way of filming near cattle and horses, and how are we going to run with horses at speed? We have tools for that, and we just call them and bring them in.
How do you do that?
The main way is we get a pursuit car, which is an F-150 Raptor with a Russian arm, or now they call it a Ukraine arm, and they're kind of built to run through fields and things like that.
And it's just the stabilization is just like very good. The gimbal or whatever
It's
that's
really,
holding the camera.
it's really
Yeah,
good.
wow, I would have
Yeah,
guessed drones.
Yeah, right.
yeah, you could do that too. It kind of depends, with drones and or helicopters, and the car for that matter, the pursuit truck. You just have to make sure that the animals are, around and get familiar with them. You can't just spring it
Buzz
on
in.
them.
Yeah.
So if you're using a drone, for example, sometimes you'll fly it over the cattle so that they get used to the sound. And because a lot of times the cattle that you were using, they haven't done a TV show before. So what is this thing? Why are all these people around?
Right, but they're used to trucks. A pickup truck, they're used to that.
Well, yeah, you have to kind of. We did that more with horses. Like the big cattle scenes. A lot of times that's more helicopter.
Oh wow.
And you get the truck around them, and they can get a little skittish. The cattle.
Got you.
So basically, the smaller projects, you're just reinventing the wheel at like every turn. Because, there's less precedent for things or something. It's really interesting.
Well, you're in lower budget projects, you tend to prefer more talking scenes as opposed to taking wagons up and over big steep mountains, things like that. Because you can do that, but when we did Butcher's Crossing, we're taking wagons up and over mountains, but we've got them cabled off to quads and side by sides, so that if the horses slip, the whole thing doesn't just roll backwards down the mountain and kill everybody, including the horses. And then visual effects gets in there and paints them all out. Paints out the cables, paints out the other people. But on a low budget, sometimes those are things that are a little concerning, just because, well, if it takes too long,
right? Is it
now
worth
we've lost
it?
half a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Asking yourself that more often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do we do that? And is that something that we can break off a unit and do, or is this something that we need all of the safety hands that we have with us to be there?
And is that
those are conversations in prep.
Like this problem solving, is that your favorite part of the job, or what is it where you're like, now I feel fucking alive. This is why I do this shit. Like, when do you get that feeling in your job?
I get that in a couple different ways. Sometimes I second unit direct, which could be awesome. And sometimes that's, working with the director and the DP and figuring out like, okay, I'm just going to be filming a wagon going over a hill, or the character, running or walking someplace or whatever. And, what are we trying to say here? And then bring that back to them and say, is this kind of what you're looking for? Some people just set up a camera and let it walk, let people just walk through, and others, I try to, bring something to that, because ideally it looks like it was shot with the main unit.
Right.
So that I really like. But I think in this, line producer, production manager role, it's figuring out the puzzle. It's how do we make this work? Because they're all just hard. Everything is hard. It's hard to make a movie or a TV show. I mean, ideally we all make it look easy, but you don't just make a movie. You kind of will it into being through brute force.
Yeah.
So I like it. It's bringing that creativity, a different kind of creativity to the mix. Obviously I'm not designing wardrobe or the shots, but sometimes getting us to that point takes a lot of creativity.
Yeah, for sure. So we should, like, how we met was throwing a show together pretty quickly. You threw it together. But we met working on the Ultimate Expedition show, which was the show The Dudes and Soul that we made in Peru. And obviously there's a crazy end to that whole story, but like from the beginning of, like, take me through putting that show together, because I know it it was like a big production in a foreign country, and it had to happen like immediately, right? I mean, it was like you had to be very creative, including with your credit cards and everything, no?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when I got a call saying, "Hey, we want to do this show. It's a mountaineering show. We would shoot it like in I think it was somewhere on 3 months. We're going to shoot it in 3 months." Okay. Yes, the show's been done before, so the Finns did it for Finnish television, and we're going to do it, for YouTube Red, and let's come in and have a conversation about it. And for me, I think what gave me some comfort to it was that I had mountain climbed before. Nothing like we did actually in the Andes, and it was just mostly my stuff that I did was in the Pacific Northwest, but it was enough not to be scared of it, you know.
Right.
And so then when I came in and I read the production manual that the Finns had written as basically the Bible of here's how to do it again, the first thing it said was, you need a year to prep. And I said, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we only have 3 months. Awesome. That's exactly how it always works.
Yeah.
So part of it was we were meant to go climbing in the wrong season. The gear is kind of, built for seasons. And so, okay, can we get enough mountaineering boots? Can we get enough sleeping bags? Can we get enough tents? The rough idea was we're going to take 80 people or so up to 14,000 feet, build a base camp, kind of like almost like a MASH set for those of us that are old enough to know what MASH is.
Love it.
TV series from the 70s. And then look at the problems that the Finns had when they tried to do the show. One of which was that they had a lot of illness. So what are ways that we can maybe help with that? We added a second layer of water filtration, for example, to the mix to make sure, or to try to help with not having, waterborne, illnesses get us. And
I never knew
so,
about all
some
that.
of those things are, I'm sorry?
I never knew that was like an issue that they had on the Finnish show that we were trying to avoid on our show.
Makes sense.
We had two thoughts on the topic. One was, can we just bring, like cases of bottled water? I mean, not little bottles, but can we bring big cases of water? And then it was, well, how many gallons of water do we need? And we came up with a rough idea of 1,000 gallons a day. Well, that's a lot of water. It's a lot of weight. That's 8,000 pounds. That's 4 tons of water. That's a lot to bring up either on somebody's back or on horseback or animals.
I mean, even getting it in the town to like the last point that a car can go, because like there's like we all met or we drove our vans, our trucks, or whatever to this one point, and then we hiked like 13 miles to get to our base camp. So even just to
an
get
hour and a half drive and a 10-mile hike up 4,000 feet.
So even just to get all that water
nothing
to the drive drop point before it gets walked 10 miles, like I feel like that would be 1,000 gallons a day is a lot. Yeah.
Which is why that plan was quickly abandoned.
Okay.
But it was a thought experiment. It's like,
Sure.
Okay, so if people had if a lot of people got sick, what can we do about that? What were the vectors for that? One is altitude sickness. Well, that's not a water issue. But if people were getting, and I don't remember what sort of illnesses that people had, but it was one of our thoughts. It was like, well, what would it take to get cleaner water? Because we got water from the streams that were up there, mountain streams, but there were animals that were all over the place, animals that we brought up, but also wild animals. So, there could be diseases in the water, that sort of thing. So water was already getting boiled. But we added one, you probably heard of life straw. So we added a life straw filtration process in the mix of that. And so that was just one little piece of the pie. And, one of 1,000 details was, let's think about water and food. You need it for cooking, you need it for cleaning, you need it for our little toilets that we built up there. That was another thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do we use the facilities?
Yeah,
You
80
know,
people
peeing's not
pooping
the
every
biggest.
day. Yeah.
Peeing's not the issue, really. It's
Peeing's easy.
it's the other one.
Yeah.
And you know, you're also basically on a plane, and you know, if you've got 80 people up there and you're there for several weeks, you've got a sanitation problem. And so how do we solve it? You know, again, that, and to some degree the Finns dealt with that, and so we kind of piggybacked on that, on their plan. But we also had something that I don't think that they did, which was, I don't believe they had a full YouTube team like your team.
No.
I think they were just filming the television show, whereas we did our 10 episodes of television, but we also did 10 episodes of virtual reality. So we had a VR team, and then we had your team of 10 people to do what I think was around 200 pieces of content.
Yeah.
Filmed and edited up there. And I think you guys aired it, right? Or dropped it, put it online.
Not till later. That was something I actually learned, was because that was the first time the YouTube component had been done. My takeaway was like, we didn't have to edit any of this on the mountain. I guess it's nice that we came back and things were half cut, but everything came out with each episode, you know? So it was like, the episode would air on YouTube Red, and then that same time on everybody's YouTube channels, their own vlog of that day, you know, filming that episode would come out.
Okay.
And so it was kind of this ecosystem. So those episodes, all that content, except for like people's little like teasers and kind of like, hey, I'm here filming this, like just kind of these little, like teaser videos. Nothing came out till the show actually came out. So that was actually my takeaway. I don't think we needed people just sitting there editing all day. We could have filmed a lot more, or maybe had less people.
Trouble, huh? No.
Could have saved some trouble. No, I mean, it was cool. Like, you know, we had to do it this way to learn. But, and actually, having said that, there was a component that was really good about us editing in real time, is that we're the only ones seeing the vlog cam. The guy laying in his tent looking at the vlog cam saying, dude, like, this is so crazy, or this is so cool, or tell some like inspiring story
it's
of
so
like,
cold.
It's so fucking cold. But then we were reporting all that back to the story producers, and they're like, oh shit, like there's a whole story there with that relationship between Gus and Steve-O that like we didn't really realize they were having this, you know. So there was something to it, but anyway, it probably should have been just one or two, maybe three people just ingesting all that footage, like labeling it, kind of pre-cutting it. But then back in LA, we could have had a bigger editing team putting all that together. Because then it ended up falling on just me and JC to do the final cuts of everything, which really actually became just JC because I was incapacitated.
You were busy.
I was busy not being dead.
Otherwise occupied.
Yeah.
Well, you know, just going into the planning, my understanding was that you needed to put things up every day, or that they did. So we had a component that I don't think that the Finns had, which was, I mean, we could have operated on an emergency basis with satellite phones.
Right.
But in our need to, or at least my understanding of our initial need was to try to put stuff up every day. We had two whole different satellite upload systems. So we brought, a former CNN satellite uplink engineer who used to be Cristiano Mampour's, satellite uplink guy. We brought him up to the mountain to run these two systems. And we also used satellite phones as well. Mm-hmm. And so that was, it was the first time I've taken that level of technology to, that far away. Mm-hmm. Typically I'm not doing that kind of thing, and then of course, you're going to run that, and you got to charge everything. You got to run computers. Now you need a generator or a generator field. I mean, it kind of felt like we were setting up the generators on Hoth in Empire Strikes Back. We had a dugout setup for, I think it was 9 or 10 generators. And of course, fuel had to get brought up for them every day or two, on donkeys. And you can't just have them getting rained on. So we had tents built for them. And I mean, it was like literally every kind of component of life we had, from water to food to sanitation to satellite comms. We
Mm-hmm.
also had radio communications, and how far would those reach? And what do we do when, half the team is at base camp and half the team somewhere on the mountain? Will our walkie-talkies work that far? And if not, what comms do we use? So, a lot of those things, when you have a year to sort them out or upgrade the technology from the last version of the show, that's helpful. But when you have to kind of pop it all together first up and go, oh, well, how does one do satellite uplinks from 14,000 feet?
Right. Figure out
Does
how,
somebody actually have
and
to carry
then
that on their back?
secure it, buy it, put it in place, get it, like all that.
Yeah.
Like the research, the development, the buying, the pre-pro, it all happened at the same time, basically. I mean, I guess they had done the show before, so that was covering a lot of ground, but it was a crazy thing. I mean, do you ever feel like in another life you were like a Navy SEAL, like, yeah, like if like you could have got bin Laden, if they were like, we think he's somewhere around here, like, how do we get him? You would have been like, great, like you're gonna need a satellite comm, you're gonna need sanitation, you're like, let's figure out all of our worst case scenarios, let's plan for everything. Like, I wonder,
we have a friend really into puzzles and like obstacle courses, that kind of thing, and she follows some treasure hunters. I feel like you would be good at that, unpacking that, working backwards.
Yeah, have you heard of this?
Go into treasure hunting.
This guy made like a book. He like buried all this treasure all over the United States, and then he made this huge book. And it's like, if you read the whole book, the clues are all in there to find like $1 million here or like some crypto here or whatever. And it's like this big puzzle thing. Anyway.
For all the free time.
I was involved in a project like that about 20 years ago at the outset, and the idea was that they're going to hide $1 million and give people clues online that would get them into essentially a reality show, and then we would pick it up on the ground as they went for various targets.
Oh, cool.
That was an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, just from the security of, we're going to bury $1 million someplace,
right?
Very few people can know that.
Yeah.
but if it's, and essentially it was a contest. So think, well, like The Amazing Race, or our sort of methodology was like the Reader's Digest. I'm forgetting the word, but like a sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are rules for those kinds of things. You can't just throw one on, throw it together.
Yeah.
There's a whole legal component that goes with that, which is another craziness. Ultimately, I didn't end up sticking with that project. But when that first happened, I was like, huh, sure. I mean, I guess like 3 of us can know where it is. And if it's the 3 of us that go put it someplace, then it has to be one of us if it leaks,
But then you're like, and I mean, how much are you getting paid versus if you go take the $1 million and run? Like, there's a lot of, it's kind of that could be a movie in itself, like 3 producers bury $1 million. They're the only ones that know. And like, what happens,
I like it.
But I don't know, maybe I just live in the wrong city, but $1 million isn't enough to really move that needle for me. Cause if I got to be on the run for the rest of my life,
yeah, you'd have to go. You'd go right to Thailand or like, I don't know, Zimbabwe or something.
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
Coast.
Well, yeah, and I've been lucky enough to travel a lot of different places too. It's like, okay, I would probably have a pretty good idea of where to go to hide.
Yeah, I don't want you to
out your passport.
Yeah, a local fixer just about everywhere. Yeah.
Where do you think you'd go if you had to? Maybe give us your runner-up so you can keep your first one actually safe.
I don't think I'll do that because I might need it.
Might need 1 or 2. I got you.
Yeah, top 3 are hard to disclose.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, well, I do want to get to all the. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, just one other thing I was going to say about like the satellite uplink thing, which
Mm-hmm.
leads me to the money conversation,
Mm-hmm.
was like the satellite uplink. We needed to send the guy out to get training on it because he wasn't taking the gear from CNN. So we needed to like send the guy to a location. Well, the fun part of the show is we didn't really have any money. Uh, How do you make a multi-million dollar show when you don't have the money yet? How do you buy millions of dollars worth of equipment when you don't have the money yet?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was like, with YouTube Red, we had to, meet different milestones. And then once we did, they had 90 days to fund. Well, the show's over in
Yeah.
90 days.
Right. Huh.
And so again, there was just another component of a thing to solve is, what's the short-term funding, how few people can we have on to put this thing together, research it, figure it out, come up with a plan, and then what are our internal tripwires of, well, we need $1 million here to order this equipment, $1 million there to order that equipment, and $1 million here to get everybody on payroll, buy the plane tickets, um, get all the buses, the bus tickets from Lima to Juarez and things like that.
Hmm.
And we were weeks past those internal trip lines, and that's when I kind of went to the host, to the owner of the company, Yuka, and said, either we have to shut down or we need a short-term loan. And he's like, well, how much do you need? I said, well, about 3 million. And just so happens that one of the Dudesons, is my recollection, one of the Dudesons is on the board of a bank in Finland. And he was able to do it. And within about 5 days, we had nearly $3 million in a bank. And I went, wow, those are good friends to have, because
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
We should
normally.
do that again sometime. Yeah.
Exactly.
We should start there.
And so we did as many things as we could. The sleeping bag guys weren't going to make the sleeping bags until we paid them. The La Sportiva and oh God, I just forgot the other company. The other boot company, we were going to buy every boot they had left, after the climbing season. And so we're trying to buy, what do you have left, and what sizes of people do we have? All that was basically set up, ready to ship, or ready to build, or ready to pull, the second we had money. So as soon as we did, okay, great, let's do it. Except now we have no way to spend it, because some companies in America, they're not used to, well, they are probably now, but back then it was like wiring a company money wasn't, to a lot of these companies, they couldn't do it that way. And so we ended up having to be with a particular bank. They would only give us 5 debit cards. We could only spend $3,000 a day on each card, and that's $15,000 a day. And that is, by crunch time, we had to do that every 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I had this crazy idea, which I have never done before and I'll never do again. What if we pre-fund my personal company's Amex card with $200,000 a day, and I just spend it that way? And American Express kind of went, "You do that?" So, you said I had an unlimited. I don't have a limit on my credit card, but clearly I do, because I think that it was like $30,000. And I said, well, I'm going to spend that before I have my first donut in the morning.
Yeah.
And so our accountant and I came up with this idea, like, well, what if we just wired you guys money into my account and spend that instead? And so that's kind of how we paid for the first, $1 million worth of stuff until we could get enough money out the door to get the thing to happen.
What kind of credit card points you end up after the whole thing is said and done?
Well, thankfully I didn't get an audit from the IRS. I lived for a couple of years going, oh my God, they're going to think I made this money. So that was a big worry, to be honest.
Wow, that's a good point.
I did end up with a screaming boatload of points.
Yeah.
A lot of points.
Good.
But there was a fear for years. It was like, oh God, is there going to be some shoe that drops?
Sure. And I mean, you put your ass on the line anyway. If the whole thing falls apart and YouTube Red says, forget it, we're not giving you any money or whatever. I mean, I'm sure you had some kind of like safety net, but it would have still been a fucking nightmare.
That's why we made sure to pre-fund it.
When you made that choice. Yeah.
Pre-funded.
We pre-funded it because I wasn't willing. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I knew John Gray, but I didn't know anybody else. And I mean, at the end of the day, it was a job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not my show, not my company,
Not your
you know.
baby.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, so there were a lot of challenges getting us even to the point where we could put people on a plane.
Crazy. And then filming, from my perspective, went pretty smooth. Yeah. Like we're on the mountain, we're living at
All the
base camp.
things, all the things that could go wrong on a mountain climbing show. I mean, and there are a lot. I mean, mountain climbing in general. I mean, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
People die.
Right.
It happens. And you need leadership on the mountain who also is going to be um, at times making tough calls. Like it's a TV series and we need a good ending, but you know what? If we don't get these people off the mountain right now, we could kill people. And you need people that have the right temperament for that. And I think we did, but it's easy to see where that would go sideways. You know, it's like you force a bad situation and then suddenly you got a bunch of people dying on a mountain. And then what do you do? So yeah, we didn't have any of that. I got altitude sickness. Our satellite guy got altitude sickness. We eventually had to go down. We had one of our sound mixers fall into a crevasse, but she was on a rope team. So they were able to pull her back out. And when she fell in, she didn't smash her face or break a leg or anything. So she got back out and she just kept hiking up the mountain, which is crazy, but awesome.
I know everyone was
So all the things that really could have gone wrong just didn't. And, you know,
Yeah.
thank God.
I mean, everyone was such a badass. Like you're seeing like the contestants like struggle to carry a thing. And like, you know, like there's this epic shot of them like trying to climb up, but then you realize like, who's holding that camera? You know, like that guy's climbing a mountain too with a camera, like getting a good shot. You know, like I was really hoping the show would kind of like break the fourth wall as much as possible, and that the vlog cam would be like, dude, like look at John, or like look at Tony here. Like Tony's a fucking badass, and he's like been a cameraman this whole time, like, and kind of show that whole world. That the edit didn't end up doing a lot of that, but yeah, like that is crazy. Like
those are the Navy SEALs.
Yeah, those are the Navy SEALs. Yeah, you'd be like in command, you know, like okay, you're gonna have to go here, but then it's Tony coming down and doing crazy shit. Yeah, so much badass
and racing ahead, you know, and there's only so much racing ahead you can do when you're at altitude, right? But someone, if we want to see you coming at the camera, well, that guy's got to get in front of you and turn around.
Yeah.
And then he's got to sit there and freeze his butt off while you take forever to hike past him.
Mm-hmm.
And then since I'm there, I might as well get a shot of him going away. Well, now I've been standing there for an hour and I am frozen, you know, like a popsicle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because every time, you know, it's when you're mountain climbing, it's like, okay, when you stop, you throw on all your clothes and then you're going to start up again. You take all your clothes back off, shove them back in the bag. Well, how did you do that when you're holding the camera? Or the sound guys, girls that have the sound rig on them,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Gnarly.
it's a lot of, suddenly the 35-pound camera is, it's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Though every pound makes a difference. So okay, so the shooting went pretty good, and then the rap party feels like something might have gone wrong. What's
Well, the rap party was actually okay. I don't know how much you might want me to share about that, but
you share whatever you want.
There's the rap party. You know, there had been a bit of drinking on the mountain, I might say.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that we're going to have a party right after people got off the mountain that day, and then drink a lot. Okay, we're going to need a lot of food. Let's make sure people, you know, aren't going to have altitude sickness along with probably drinking too much, because, you know, we do that at the end of shows. We get all excited.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, all the stress, and you let it all go and you drink too much. And okay, well, let's have people walk to this guy's house instead of drive. We don't want any people driving. And okay, seemed fair enough. And, you know, when me and the showrunner and the other co-exec producer, you know, you were playing tic-tac-toe on your leg with a tattoo gun, and I thought, you know, I think this is the time I leave.
Which is one of my last memories of that night, is playing tic-tac-toe on my leg with a tattoo gun.
I thought, you know, I've been to some pretty crazy rap parties. This is new. I'm leaving.
Yes.
And literally, like, the cast, they were on a bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, and everything seemed like, oh, good. They all left. Everybody got on their way, and everybody was turning in their equipment, mountaineering equipment, and also getting the filming equipment all packed away and set to be. We didn't really talk about carnes, but you've got to basically import export all of your equipment and all of your supplies. So all that has to get repacked so that it can get checked out of the country. So all that was going well. And then I was with our two production managers who were in charge of doing those things at lunch. And Alan, one of your guys, Alan, walks by, and I said, "Oh, hey, how's your shoot going today? You guys are doing one final shoot or something?" And then, so you guys are good? Yeah, it's 12 o'clock. You guys are probably done, right? Oh no, we can't find Paul. What do you mean you can't find Paul? Would he go to lunch without you, breakfast without you? What happened? No, no, like we can't find him. What do you mean? Well, his roommate in LA is his roommate in his hostel, his roommate on the mountain. Yeah, they were at, when they went to leave the club, but nobody could find Paul. Well, what do you mean club? We had the party at a guy's house. Oh yeah, but after there was a club. Oh boy. What? Yeah, he just, after about 2:30, no one knows where he went. And I was like, so we really have somebody who's missing. Like missing, not he went to breakfast without you. And then it turned into a whole different operation. Then it went from the fun of making a TV show to, holy shit, this could be a really big problem.
Check, please.
La cuenta,
Yeah.
por favor.
Yeah.
I think I need to get on the plane with the cast.
Let me get out of here. Yeah.
Let's have somebody else. You can have the keys. Here's the keys.
Yeah. Hey, this is your show. You're in charge now.
You're so close of just being done. Yeah.
We were. I mean, we were in great shape. I mean, we went to lunch and we were relaxed and just, we weren't drinking yet, but we would have for dinner, and it would have been a nice dinner, and we all get on the bus at 7 the next morning and head off back to the US. And then suddenly it went into like, oh, this could be really, really serious. I mean, we were hoping it was nothing. I mean, we were hoping like, oh, Paul met a cute girl. Honestly, that was our hope for a good long time.
Yeah.
It was like, a tall, good-looking young guy met somebody, off they went, right?
Sure.
And oh God, would that have been a better option for a lot of us? Because it became pretty clear right away, like, okay, no, this is a real problem. Like he disappeared from within a building. He was, walking to the, last report, you were walking to the DJ booth after having talked to, oh my God, help me with names, our lawyer's son,
Nick.
Nick.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm going to forget her name too. I just talked to her last week.
Ibis.
Ibis. Yeah. Those are the last two that I talked to that had seen you. And I think Ibis, if I recall, had put her beer in your coat pocket while she went to the bathroom, came back, you weren't there. You and Nick had a conversation about whether he was happy. And then he saw you heading off to the DJ booth. And I went there the next day to kind of started doing like an after action report. And I'm looking at, on the floor going, oh, the DJ booth right there. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to go to the stairwell and go up because there must be a door back there. And I didn't ask how to get there. I just went there. Like, if I'm Paul, what am I doing? Not learning until later that the way to get there is all the way around the other direction, through the bar, through the back storeroom, and then up some stairs and out to this little DJ booth. And I guess you guys, there were 4 of you that were kind of DJing all night. So this was just you returning to that group of people. So it seems obvious that you would have ended up there, but why didn't you? And so for me, when I went to the stairs, I was like, oh, I went up and, oh, there should be a door here. There's no door here. Well, maybe I'll go up. Maybe it's up on another level. So I went up another level and then another level and another level. And now I'm on the roof, which eventually we learned what happened. But okay, so he just poof, in the middle of this basement disco club place. And how do you go missing from there? And then again, how bad could that be? Like, it's in a basement. He got out, he left. Turns out that wasn't the case.
Wild. So you got up to the roof. You're like, okay, he's not up here. I'll go back down and we'll keep trying to figure this out. Also, for the record, I wasn't DJing. I think I was just the guy bothering the DJs the most. It was Jasmeet and Babu. Yep. Jasmeet was one of the cast members. Then Babu was a guy on my team who was friends with Jasmeet. They were sort of DJing all night, and I wanted to be DJing all night, and I kept bothering them and telling them, play Marvin Gaye, trust me, man. And so I think I was like, I got to go back up there, like they need me. And then, then I wandered up the stairs and must have just gone up to the roof.
I think so. Up to you to tell us what you were thinking, but back to
I'm just guessing.
Not a lot of thoughts.
I'm just guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we were at lunch and Alan walked by, I said, well, wait a minute. So I'm surprised no one bothered to tell me, but this is me ringing the alarm bell. This is a big deal. So I basically said to Heather, your responsibilities are now going to go over to Sean. Sean's going to have to deal with all the equipment in addition to all the mountaineering stuff. I want you to get all of Alan and all the rest of Paul's team together, except JC and Elise, who were at another police station, which Alan knew about. They were looking at closed circuit television footage, which I was shocked that town had some, but no kidding. They were apparently there. And I said, I want you to get Alan and the entire rest of that team, and I want you to do it right now. And I want to search 5 blocks by 5 blocks around this square, because it was where our hostels were. And turns out that's where the club was, in that area too, but none of us knew where that was. And I said, listen, they don't really use dumpsters here. They just throw shit on the sidewalk, and the dogs all eat it. But check every doorway, check every dumpster, any doorway you can get into, check. And then find that damn club, get over there. Let's work our way towards that club. And let's find out if, was he at the Cast Hotel? So we called Valerie at the hotel and said, hey, we might have a problem. Paul's missing, and we need to know if he is in that hotel, the Cast Hotel. Like, maybe you ended up over there and stayed. Can you open every room that doesn't have a guest, any room that we had, and get in there and make sure that he's not in there? So they did a search at the hotel. And then Heather led Alan and Nick and the rest of your team searching for you. And I think this started about 12:30. So you'd been missing from 2:30 in the middle of the night until 12:30 when we started looking for you physically. I know JC and Ibis were looking at the closed circuit television to try to figure out where you might have gone. And it was interesting because I saw that footage too. And we see you with everybody else coming around the corner, down the street, going in the club. You never leave. It's like, well, where could he go? So eventually it's like, well, he's got to be in there, I think. Like, how else, and nobody was so completely, this came up with the insurance conversations later, but, like, were you drunk? Well, I don't know what's drunk. They didn't do a blood test at the first hospital, so who knows? But when you came around the corner, you and everybody else were walking like normal human beings. You didn't run into a pole. You didn't fall down. You didn't trip on the curbs. You looked like a normal human being going from one place to another, and into a building you went, and you just never came out. This went on for about 4 hours. So from 12:30 to about 4:30, we couldn't find you. And during that time, I tried to call the ambassador at the embassy, and that's when I realized, oh yeah, Trump just fired all of our ambassadors all over the world. Okay, so I got to call the charge d'affaires. Okay, great. Who the hell's that? Who got upped once the ambassador got fired? Who got upped? And it turns out our Joe, our post our post producer, his brother was serving in Iraq with that guy's brother.
Wow.
And so we got that guy's personal phone number, and I called him out of the blue, the charge d'affaires in Peru, and said, "Hey, listen, I've got a problem. I don't know what to do about it." I said, "Here's what we are doing, but I mean, like we have a missing American, basically. What are the protocols? What does one do when that happens?"
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of doing the things that you do, but basically we got them warmed up for whatever we might need.
Nice.
And so,
Navy
so
SEAL.
it was just all these conversations going around. Called a lawyer and just said, "Hey, listen, we got a missing man here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what you're going to do about it, but just so you know."
Yeah.
So basically just kind of warmed everybody up for, "Hey, we got a problem."
Sure.
And then after a while, well, that kind of went on for a long time, and they had searched the building where the club was. And you've probably told this story on your podcast.
No, but I like having your perspective of it.
But the building next to the one that you were at was a shell of a building. I don't know if it had collapsed during an earthquake or it was just half demoed, but the windows were all broken out and they had rocks in the windows. So it was basically a 2-story wall around this lot next to this brand new building, of which the club was in the basement. And so Alan and Nick and the rest of the team had searched that building and by the way, they went to the wrong club to start with. So they were searching a whole nother building and then found out, oh, this club, it was another club. That guy didn't want to open the club. So then it's like, okay, well, let's talk to the head of our local expedition and find out, well, who suggested to open the club, and then who called that guy to do it. And it turns out it was the head of the expedition. So he called his friend and said, "Open that damn building up right now."
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got into it. Or I should say they got into it, Heather and your guys. And they searched, and they found people living in all kinds of places underneath things.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's kind of like, well, maybe he's in here somewhere. And they were about to give up because they didn't find you. And there had been 2 girls that came into the bar, I guess prostitutes that were known to the local police. And so there was an officer with Heather and the team from our police station. And we sent another person over, and they were going to go knock down the doors of these 2 girls because they're like, well, Paul's got to be with one of them. And by this point, the local police are now worried that, okay, we have a missing American. That's bad for them, very bad for them.
Sure.
And, obviously it's like, the easy thing is he's with a girl. The hard thing is it was a drug deal. Some drug deals gone wrong. There was a prostitution thing that happened,
Mm-hmm.
like all kind of manner of bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the police are going there. We're not quite going there yet, but the police are definitely going there. And they're wanting to talk to me about that stuff. And I'm like, he's a nice kid. I don't know. Like, was he drinking? Yeah, it was a party. Beyond that, I can't tell you. I don't know what happened. And then not long after that, Alan said to somebody, "I need to go take a look at the roof one more time." And as you know, they don't put a roof on a building a lot of times because once they do that, they have to pay taxes. So they don't put a roof on. So
they're unfinished.
They'll put a tent. Yeah, there's so many buildings there that are unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the stairwell hole, and they put a tent over it, and then there's 2-foot brick walls and 4-foot brick walls and a bunch of rebar that's just waiting for the next floor, which will probably never be built.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan had been up there before, but he said to whomever, I don't know if it was Heather or Nick or somebody else, "I just feel compelled before we leave here. I just feel compelled to go up there one more time and look. I don't even know what I'm looking for." And he wandered up there, all the way up to the top. And he's looking around without knowing what he's looking for. And he sees a beer bottle kind of a ways away. And he's like, "That's weird. Why would there be a beer bottle up here?" So he wanders over there and just thinks, well, it's near a wall. Maybe I'll just look over the edge. And there you are, 4 stories down on a rubble pile, looking like, my recollection is looking like, the worst of Hollywood's movies when someone falls off a building,
Right. Splat.
There's you on a
Yeah.
splat on a pile, and I'm still at the police station waiting to find out, about the girls. And I hear screaming coming over the radio, and I thought, oh God, something's happened to a local cop. I thought a local cop probably got shot.
Oh.
Just thought something bad happened. And so I'm packing my bag because I'm sure I'm about to be asked to leave the police station.
Right. We got a bigger issue
Like
going on.
Yeah, you're missing friends important, but
Right.
we have a real problem.
Right.
And Pauli's brother Manu was with me as a translator, and he says, "Holy shit, they found him and he's alive." And I was like, "What?" And so the main cop who was talking on the radio says, "Follow me." And so we literally ran about, I don't know, what was it, half a mile, something like that. And I threw my backpack on my back, and even though I'd been in country for what, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was, I was still winded running at 10,000 feet, because obviously we wanted to get there. And the cop said, "That's the building, he's in there." And so I ran up to the building, and somebody had, one of the mountaineering guys, I think, had climbed over the wall and kind of busted out all the rocks that were in one of the window holes.
Yeah.
And it kind of made a ramp. So I kind of ran up there and jumped through the window and did like a shoulder tuck roll thing. And I was doing that. And I was like,
Yeah, wow.
"You have a computer in your backpack. What the fuck are you doing?" And all the while, I'm running towards Heather because she's yelling at everyone. She's like, fuck, I can't get a hold of Tanke. And I'm like, "I'm right here.
I'm Tanke."
Where the fuck did you come from? Like, we just found him. I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm here."
Wow.
And so we kind of I kind of ran over to where you were, and again saw you in a very unpleasant looking position. But Ibis was down by your face, and at least you guys were talking like, "Oh, thank Christ, somebody's there." And the police had called an ambulance, so police were converging. An ambulance was coming. I remember somebody from the press had gotten there. Somebody was starting to videotape or take a still photo. I forget which, but I walked right up to him and I'm like, "Get this motherfucker out of here right now." And then they came in with a backboard, and I'm like, "Okay, I've got to leave." I can't hear him scream when they put him on that backboard. And but I did go up to you and I said, "Can you wiggle your fingers and toes? Because you look awful." But you said you could, and I said, "Okay, we're going to hold on to that. We're going to get you to the hospital." Me and Dr. Heike had already been to a hospital, picked it out, all that stuff. So once they got you on the backboard, they were wheeling you out on the gurney or whatever. That's when I basically said to Heather, like, "I got to get the hell out of here. I got to get to that hospital right now." So I basically jumped. Somebody had a car, so we jumped in the car, and the police are all running after me, going, "You need to stay here. We need to talk to you." And they said to Heather, "You have to get him back here. We need him." And she's like, "He's not coming back here. He's going to the hospital. You want him, go to the hospital. He's not coming back here. He has to go make sure that they got some place to land for this guy." And they were kind of threatening to her. And but anyway, I was in the car, and I don't really remember who was there. It was two other people with me. And then we were driving to the private hospital that we had picked out. And
you picked out for the show,
up,
like in case someone fell during filming of the show, or you picked it out that day when you realized I was missing.
One of the other things that we had to do when we planned was to go to both of the hospitals, the regular hospital and the private hospital. Me and Dr. Heike, the expedition doctor, and he did it because he was a doctor, and I did it because I'm logistics and risk management and all that sort of thing. But we met the two doctors that ran that hospital, and we got once I gotten in country, we got a tour of the place, so we knew that they could handle this, but not that.
Right.
But the other hospital couldn't. They couldn't even do that much. So it's like, okay. And we had figured out what does life flight look like, and could we have helicopters on standby? No was the short answer. There weren't enough in the country. We certainly weren't going to be allowed to park an important asset, just in Juarez for 3 weeks because. So, and by the time we had already done the math, by the time we figured out, okay, we have we had somebody break a leg on the upper mountain. It was going to take us 9 hours to come down, and we were going to need 16 people as porters, groups of 4 rotating 4 at a time for X number of meters, and we'd swap out people to keep them fresh because it would be from the high mountain. It would be probably 15 miles down to the trailhead. So we figured we had 9 hours. And so when I got to the hospital, the 2 guys must have been coming off a lunch because they were walking back across the street. And I said, "Hi, remember me?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" I said, "Well, remember when I said I hoped I never saw you again?" And we all laughed. Yeah, we got a guy coming in, and it's not 9 hours from now. It's he might be 5 minutes behind me. And I said, "This is what happened."
Hours from now.
Yeah, this is minutes from now, and I could tell that your femur was broken. I could tell that your humerus was broken. I said I couldn't imagine he doesn't have a pretty bad concussion, but he seemed alert, and his eyes weren't fixed and dilated, like the usual, like, this is what I can tell you without being a doctor. And I said, for now, he can move his fingers and toes. But I said, when I left him, he was on the backboard and his upper chest was laying looking up to the sky. But I said his pelvis was like that. And I mean, it broke my heart to see it that way. And I said, "I know you're going to have to, x-ray him and CAT scan him, but please don't break his back." And then they rolled up, and I'm talking to I had to call John Gray and Al, and then I was there with Yuko on the drive over to the hospital. I forgot to mention this part. We just happened to be driving along, and there's Yuko on the street heading for this hospital, and it's like, "Hey, Yuko, get in." So we all just jalopy up to this hospital, and it's like, "Okay, well, we got to call your mom or dad, both. Do you want me to do it?" He's like, "No, I've met them before. I'll do it." And we talked about what to say, and he wanted to be less forthcoming than I was. And I'm like, "Well, but he works for you. He's worked for you for a long time. He's your friend as well. I'm going to defer to you on how to deal with that, but I would be frank."
And now you know my mom, so that frankness is is a requirement.
Yeah. And I was just like, I was kind of standing behind you, going, don't do that.
Well, because what did he say? Again, he said like he's fine, everything's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to.
No, but I've heard it from my mom. She was like, whatever he was telling me, I just knew like you don't know shit. Like just because he's alive doesn't mean anything to me.
He was sugarcoating it, and I was like, you don't need to tell him. You don't need to tell his parents that he's about to die, but he is in really bad shape, and we're going to fly you down here.
Right.
How fast can you get to an airport? And we're working on trying to figure out what's the quickest flight we can get you down here. You just need to tell us if you both want to come or who's coming, like whatever it is. It turns out it was your mom, but if it was going to be mom and dad and brother, mom and brother, whatever, like, sure. What do you need?
Right.
We'll get you down. And I think when I talked to Al was the first time it kind of hit me, like the severity of like, thank God we found you. Up to then we were sort of on a mission, if you will. It's like, we got to find him.
Right.
But then once we realized just how bad off you were, we're like, oh shit, this is really serious. And then again, just more logistic stuff. It's like, I'm in the waiting room. I've got a phone to each ear. The police are there. They want to take me down to the police station and interrogate me. And I've literally got 2 phones, one to each ear. I'm trying to get the workers' comp policy people on the phone. We've got to get a Spanish version of a letter of guarantee. We have an accidental death and dismemberment policy. We've got to get their people with a Spanish. And they knew that if anything happened, we would need a Spanish version. But, it's one thing to plan. It's another thing to like why can't I get you on the damn phone?
Right.
And then they were telling Manu that they're going to stop working on you until they get this paperwork. And I politely lost my shit and said, you're going to keep working on him if I got to go back there and force it to happen. And here's a credit card, put it on there. I said, these documents are coming. I'm just trying to get the right people at the right time zone in the right building with that piece of paper that can send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they got back to work on you. And then Dr. Heike and I would come in every 30 minutes or so, take a look at you. And it was amazing to watch your chest, which was, even with your puffy jacket on, you had a hole in your left chest. And it just kind of reformed over, I don't know, an hour or two. Like I guess, when your body wasn't in crisis, it was like, oh, well, we can go back. But your lung was still collapsed, and this one still had a hole in it, which is why I think you couldn't, my recollection is that you heard people yelling your name, but you couldn't answer because you couldn't breathe.
No. I mean, I tried yelling. I was yelling all day. I think just really no one could hear me because I was in this walled room and there's like just loud traffic, cars honking, there's like, probably I wasn't able to project as much as I would normally with two working lungs, but no, and it was just like hard to breathe, and obviously my ribs were broken, so it was just difficult.
Yeah. I don't know if it's true, but I heard you almost died that afternoon, that evening when you first got to the hospital. I was really glad that we found you when we did, because it started raining about a half an hour afterwards.
Yeah, I remember the clouds starting to form above me.
I'm sure that with your lightweight puffy jacket, you were freezing at night. And then when the sun came, you were cooked. And my recollection was that you had told us about trying to drink your own urine, and and clearly with your left hand, you couldn't move it far enough to do that, which is, to me, was testament just to how messed up you were.
No, it was even like, I mean, I was trying to drink pee with my right hand, but my left hand, I mean, between the puffy jacket, the broken everything, I couldn't even find it because I so badly wanted to just roll and just lay on my side, just to like, because I've been on my back forever. And you just like, I need to adjust. I'll be more comfortable if I can just lay on my fucking side. And so I was just trying to find my arm to grab it, to pull it over. And like, I just could not find it. And I'm like, and so I just gave up. I just like, forget it. And maybe I was even grabbing it and it was just numb and I just didn't.
You didn't know you
have
had
the
it.
sensation of having it. But I was just like this, like trying to find my arm so I could roll over. And it's probably good that I couldn't.
Yeah.
Because, ribs and legs and everything would have gotten worse probably had I done that. So maybe I would have died if, it's like a miracle I couldn't find my arm. But yeah, trying to drink my pee was just, I thought I'd fill it up like a cup and just like sip it, because I just wanted to like get my mouth. I was so thirsty. But like, I just, you can't like, it's logistically harder than it seems,
Yeah. Well, and my recollection is that once Alan saw you, you said, do you have any water?
Yeah, it was the first thing I said to anybody. And then Ibis gave me a sip of water, which like she probably shouldn't have done because I was definitely going to go into surgery, but she did anyway. And I was so grateful. She just gave me a little sip. But then as soon as I got into the ambulance with Ibis, like I just like puked in her face.
Oh God.
The little bit of water that she had given me, and then I passed out. But that was good because when I got to the hospital, it's like everything's out. There's nothing in his stomach. It was on my face already. So, but then I heard something about like my brain was swelling. So they thought they'd have to induce a coma, but like the swelling had gone down. Maybe that was something that like that night was like extra sketchy. I don't know. Like what about when you say like you had heard, like I almost didn't make it that night. What exactly were they saying?
I don't recall what that was about, because it wasn't something I learned that night. It was something I learned like the next day.
And like it's no longer an issue, so it like didn't really register probably as much.
Right. And I was just really grateful that we got you out before it rained, because I figured that you would hypothermia, you'd just be gone. You wouldn't
Yeah.
make it through that. Um, and then once you seemed relatively stable, I mean, not out of the woods, but like nothing more I could do, then I was able to go talk to the police, and then basically call the company meeting and just kind of sit, here's where we are, you know. Um, and at that point, since the police were really, really on me about information and they really wanted to interview him, like, I think he's still in a coma. I said, he's out. I said, I haven't seen him awake since he left the building. You were awake, but I just didn't want them to go in there. Because then they were starting to ask if, was he on drugs? Was he doing a drug deal? Was it prostitution? And I'm like, he looks like he fell off a building. I have no idea.
Well, signs
I've never
point
seen a
to-
prostitute do that.
Yeah. But their whole thing was too, I mean, again, if you look at it from their perspective, it's like, like if somebody from Bolivia has this problem, it's somebody from Bolivia. This is an American. I don't mean to make too much of us being Americans. We're just a pain in people's asses, but it could have tourism implications. It has a lot of implications there. It's a climbing center. People might not want to come if, somebody was killed.
Right. Like did someone inflict this on me? And if so, we got to go find that guy. Like that is really important to know. Not in the terms of like incriminating me necessarily, but like, did someone do this? And like, we got to stop that person. Like someone might be at large right now who's like pushing people off of roofs or whatever. Right.
And, I did talk to your mom at some point. I think maybe she was at the airport, or anyway, I talked to her at some point, and I don't remember why she would have said this, but my recollection was that she said something like, I don't give a shit about the who and the what and the why of it. I just want my boy back. And understood, so in some ways we didn't care what happened to you up there. You're broken and we have to fix you. So it was almost more like we were now almost like the ambulance crew, like, okay, that's a police matter, we don't care.
Right.
And at that point I'm like, I'm checking in with Sean to say, hey, listen, logistically, can we all leave? I'm not leaving, but I'd like to get everybody out. And at this point, I'm also calling the charge d'affaires back and saying, I'm a little worried about these police. Do you think that they're going to flag all of our passports? And he's like, I don't think that they could move that quickly. He said, how fast can your people get out? I said, they're going to be on a plane in, at that point, like 22 hours. He said, that's probably fine. Get them out and keep as few people in the country as you can, just in case. So that's why it was basically, me and Abis, and I wanted her not to not be around you, but I wanted her out of the country for that reason as soon as we felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I know that she was a support for you. So I didn't want to kick her out, but I wanted her gone so we didn't get stuck there.
Of course.
And I figured your mom, she wasn't on our list of people, so they wouldn't have been able to flag her. They wouldn't have known she was there. So it was really kind of down to the two of us, I think. It was like, let's just not have it be any more than the two of us stuck down here if they flag our passports. And it was kind of funny because he was like, well, why do you think they would do that? I'm like, because they're all over me. I mean, they've come to the hostel. They were all over me at the waiting room. They were, I mean, they didn't arrest me. They didn't take me anywhere, but
right.
I said, listen, I've got to go brief the whole team. And so they came, I'm like, they were attached to me for a while. And then we hired your friend, is Tatu. What was his name?
Tato.
What? One more time.
Tato, like taco, but with two T's instead of a C. Tato.
Yeah, Tato. I think we hired him to drive your mom up to Juarez, and then of course again, this is just boring stuff, but I mean, I was on with the lawyer and with the two different insurance policies and trying to figure out what to do, and of course, their insurance.
Sure.
Was he doing drugs? Was he doing prostitution? Because if you were doing those are illegal, and they don't have to pay for anything. So of course, I don't know what is. As far as I know, he hasn't done any drugs. They didn't. There's no drug screen at the first hospital. They didn't do an alcohol blood test. So was he drunk? I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in America, I said, well, yeah, in America. And how would I know 0.6, 0.82?
Right.
I don't drink much. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was trying to kind of put them off, and we were trying to think of like, well, what are we going to do here? And obviously, we knew we needed to get you down to Lima, and we knew which hospital we wanted to get you into because there's a really great hospital down there. So that's one we were able to get you into. But that took a lot of pressure. Me and the lawyer both.
For
and,
what? To get
Steve both.
To get the hospital to accept me, or to get insurance to pay for me to go to a nice hospital in Lima?
To get insurance to pay for the place of medical excellence, and then also to try to get you home. They did not want to air ambulance you home,
right?
Which they should have. They really should have.
They wanted me to take an Uber to the airport, and the doctor or the people at the hospital like, you need to go in an ambulance. Like, you're not going in an Uber.
Right.
Like they wanted me to take an Uber and sit in like a coach seats, and they're like, he needs an ambulance, and then he needs a lie down seat with like a travel nurse, like, which we eventually fought for, but my parents had to they're like, we'll buy it, but you are going to pay us back. But my parents just had to end up buying it and just like making them pay.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah. I'm almost positive my mom had to book the flight because they were doing some bullshit too, not to linger on this too much, but they were like, they were asking my mom, like, you need to approve our plan to get him out before we can do anything. But they wouldn't tell her what the plan is. She's like, what is the plan? They're like, you need to approve it, then we can go over it. And she's like, you need to tell me what it is before I approve it. Like, and anyway, yeah, it was clear they were just trying to keep me in Peru long enough for me to be able to take an Uber and fly in a coach seat, because the hospital was like, you're good to go. Like, as far as we're concerned, you're good to go. But they kept me there like longer, hoping I'd heal up enough that they could put me in a cheaper seat, because it was
that's all that was about. And I mean, they kept saying, oh, well, there might be an embolism. And it's like, yeah, but we've got the lung guys here and they're saying there isn't one.
Yeah.
So he's free to travel. If this were anywhere but the United States, if this were Europe, he'd be flying home to Europe.
Yeah.
And then there was no way to get you on a lie flat seat all the way to Chicago. So then it was basically an air ambulance from that piece. And so what Steve, the lawyer, and I were doing behind the scenes, your mom was sort of the front door, back of house. Steve and I were threatening to sue them and say that, we're going to sue you for mistreatment and not following through on your insurance policy. And then we'll probably adjoin the family and sue you that way too. So we're looking at a number of angles on lawsuits. One is that they're not taking care of you. The other one is reputational harm for all of us involved. And to sort of not prevent. There's a world where the only thing that you guys could have done was to sue the company. So we wanted to obviously do as much as we could do to take care of you.
Yeah.
Well, just because.
Yeah, that was something we didn't.
About you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was an avenue we didn't want to go down, because we knew the insurance company would turn around and try to sue Rabbit Films and the Dudesons to try and get them to pay for what we were asking the insurance company to pay for, and it would have probably been just a nightmare. And I felt like I already caused everybody enough grief.
Well, the conversations that we were having were along the lines of, to the insurance company, you're putting him in a position that there's no other way to go than to sue everybody. And we're going to be on his side suing you. Because
just need more pressure.
You're not following through. So, and frankly, things were so cheap. I mean, your first week in ICU and your first two surgeries, the leg, the arm, and then later the wrist surgery. I mean, the bill was like $43,000. I about fell over when I saw that. I was like, add a zero or two zeros to this in the US.
Yeah.
And the air ambulance was, I don't know, it's been a long time now, but it was like 30,000 or something like that to get you from Atlanta to Chicago. And I'm like, there's no way he's not going to be in a position to even be in that first class seat,
Right.
much less try to sit in a non-lie flat seat. And we looked like, what are other places we could fly you to lie flat? Like, can we fly to Toronto and then down to Chicago? Like, where are what other vectors could we fly lie flat seats to Chicago, and where do those cities come from, and can we get you there? Would have been more time in a plane, but it would have been more time in a lie flat. So it was, I want to say dumb stuff, but it a bit like producing the show. It's like stuff that doesn't seem important until it's not there, and then it's very important.
Sure.
Well, of all the problems you fixed, we sure are grateful you fixed this one.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly didn't do it by myself.
No, I know there was
there
a
was
lot
a
of
whole
people
team
running around working hard, but so much went right, honestly, to get him out of that situation. And it's always hard to review, you just realize how easy it can shift, like you said, 30 minutes later and rain, and it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm shocked. I mean, I was happened to be telling this part of that story last week with a colleague from Yellowstone, and I ran into them up in Montana. Just got to talking about it, and I'm surprised that every time I tell that story, it's an emotional thing for me. It's still hard. And the hard part is just, that we could have lost you, like, and it's not like I've known you before, what, three months before,
Right.
just, you're a nice guy, and I liked you. And I didn't want anybody ever hurt on a show that I did ever. I've been on a show where people have broken bones and shit like that, but didn't want to lose you on a show with me. So what do we got to do?
Navy SEAL. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I ever did to deserve what everybody did for me. It blows my mind that, like, I don't know. I say this somewhat jokingly, but like, I don't know if I'm that nice of a person, like, I don't know if I would have done what everyone did for me. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have done it all, like, so I don't know. I just feel like beyond grateful, and like, I don't know. It's shocking that you guys did so much for me. I know I've thanked you before, and I'll thank you again a million times, but thank you, Brian. I mean, you and everybody saved my fucking life. I mean, every day I wake up, I have you guys to thank. It's really, like, wild. I don't know. It's crazy. Humbling.
Well, think about it like this. If it had been Alan, he was on your team. I don't even know if you knew Alan before we did the show, but if it had been Alan or Nick, because those are the guys' names I can remember. I mean, you'd have gone out of your way for them, I think.
Yeah, I like to think I would.
This is your opportunity to say no.
No.
I mean, I'd like to think I would. I love those guys, and like, or JC, like, is my best friend. I would have done a lot, or Tato, like, I don't know. It's just, it blows my mind that everyone did so much for me. I don't know. It's
I jump in with, I didn't mean to interrupt you before, but it's like JC's intuition too, that something was wrong. Because he was sort of the first person to be like, this is unlike Paul, right? And it's not this low hanging fruit of he wandered off with a girl, like, I always think about that point too, of just, okay, how much more time would you or could you have lost if he didn't have that nagging feeling that,
right. And that's another place where I feel like I would have been like, guys, JC's fine. Let's not make a big deal of this.
Now that I'll give you. I think that would have been true.
Whereas JC's like, fuck, this fucking really bad, guys. This is a problem. Like, it would take more for me to be like, I've been like, dude, he's like, let's not fucking kill his buzz. He's probably with a chick. He's probably having a great time. So yeah, I think, I don't know.
And then suddenly the door gets broken down and a SWAT comes in.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, we're here to save you. We're here to rescue you. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's, I don't know. It's just, maybe it's just a silly thing, I think, but it's just, I'm just so grateful is all I'm saying. I can't believe how lucky I am. Even just, I mean, look at me, you know, I can run, I can swim, I can like, did you think, you know, when you first, you're like, oh, he's alive. But like, I feel like there was a lot of whispers of like, you might not be normal now. Right. You know?
When you told me it was like December of that year, you texted me and said, it's really ugly looking, but I'm running. What? But I also couldn't believe it the next day, after your surgery, um, where they had you take your walker around your room.
Yeah.
There was no casts,
That blows my mind.
and you were walking around, and I just was like, I was like, well, fuck, he's going to be fine. Like, I couldn't imagine that you weren't going to be stuck in one of those casts we've all seen in the movie where they're like, "Arr!" You know, they got full body casts with a fucking hole in their mouth.
Right. Yeah.
How did that not happen? Right. And then, hey, you know, my wrist is sore. Wrist is sore. It's busted in 1,000 pieces. I mean, put an erector kit in there, you know?
I know. That was crazy. Every step of the way, I got so lucky. It's insane. Even just the fall itself. Had I fallen maybe an inch to the left and inch to the right, I might have been paralyzed or in the full body cast for the rest of my life. Or
Christopher Reeves.
And even if I was Christopher Reeves, people would be saying rightfully, like, you're lucky. You're lucky to be alive. You're like, I would have been lucky in any outcome other than death, you know? And so I feel like the luckiest person alive. I don't know.
I mean, people die falling 10 feet, let alone 40.
Sure. Or break a back or a spine or have a limp forever or...
Yeah. I mean, it really, so many things...
It's wild.
Came together.
And, you know, and some people have to deal with that shit by themselves. That's the craziest thing. People bring up to me like, wow, that must have been gnarly. And I was like, for me, I kind of just laid it around and watched Netflix for like a few months, you know? Like everybody else around me did everything. Between you and my mom and Ibis and Tato and JC and even Polly was coming to help with stuff and Manu was like, Ivan came and Ivan, the drone guy, he came and donated blood because he has like rare blood that I needed. And they weren't able to get it off just like a normal blood donor thing.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Paulie put out a notice on Facebook that we needed whatever your blood type was.
Yeah, I forget what it was.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, like, just I don't know, man. Yeah, like a lot of people have to deal with that shit by themselves, even if they get as lucky as I did in, you know, surviving something. So I was like, you guys were like, it was like the red carpet of medical treatment for me. It was crazy.
Well, I was really glad that hospital existed because that's the nicest hospital I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And Paul mentioned too that they were sort of expertly prepared to handle with fall injuries because of all the rock climbing.
Oh, the first hospital.
At least that first one. And that I think you also said that when you had the rod removed out of your arm.
Okay. Well, you're confusing a couple things, but
oh geez.
No, so the first hospital, like they were like, we don't do surgery here. We can't do much, but like stabilizing people who have fallen is like the thing that we do. That's kind of like, we're a mountain climbing town, you know, like this is the one thing we are actually very confident in is like someone who has fallen. So I feel like that was lucky. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then with my shattered wrist, I got out of the surgery and the doctor who had been doing all my surgeries, awesome guy, Dr. Salse, he was like, hey man, the surgery went great. Actually, I had a friend in town, like happened to be in the country. He's a wrist expert. He was like speaking at some convention. So he sat in on your surgery and so, you know, we just got to, so
more luck.
So we were sending x-rays home to like friends of ours, family friends who are surgeons. And they were like, holy, just from the x-rays, they were like, wow. They were like, you would have never got it that good here. Oh yeah. And then when they removed the rod from my arm, my scar now is this big. It's like 3 inches long, but that's from the removal. The initial scar to put it in was like 1/2 inch. And so the guy in America who pulled out the rod was like, yeah, the guy who put your rod in is better than me. So he was able to do it like that. I can't do it that way. I have to make a much bigger scar in order to do this. So I think it's just something like, American, superiority. Like we assume that medical care is worse in other countries, but the medical care I got in Peru was like second to
World
none.
class.
World class.
Exactly.
Plus the
I would
hospital.
go down there for a surgery.
Yeah, I like my mom has always said that. She's like, if anything goes wrong, if I can fly, I'm going straight to that hospital. The name escapes me at the moment, but yeah, it's crazy. We kept
The next
accidentally
hospital,
calling it.
Miraflores.
Yeah, in Miraflores. Yeah,
I do think that you could go without papaya for the rest of your life and not miss
yeah.
it.
I finally started eating papaya again. I got so sick of papaya in that hospital because all the fruit cups. My mom would always get me a fruit cup from and like I don't know, papaya. I had just been eating so much papaya. I was like, the one thing my mom knew how to say in Spanish was "sin papaya," which means without papaya. Because she had to get me that fruit cup sin papaya every time.
Where were you having papaya?
Just like papaya smoothies in Juarez, like papaya is just and then in the hospital, it was like all the fruit, I could only eat limited things. So like I would eat a lot of fruit cups and like it was just a lot of papaya. And I just got so sick of papaya. I was like, I don't know. It started to taste bad to me. Now I'm back on papaya. I like papaya.
I brought a papaya home from the grocery store today, so he's come so far.
But I just got so sick of papaya. I don't know. That was like the worst it got was that like all the fucking papaya. That's the most I can complain personally about what I had to deal
All
with.
the things.
Of all
All
the
the
things.
things.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I have to say it's a really God, this just sounds odd. I don't know how to put it any better. I just feel privileged to have been able to be part of it, and I like the fact that your surgery was on my birthday because I get to be reminded of it every birthday,
Oh, wow.
and just think, like how lucky you got, and how lucky I have it in my life for all the things I've been, blessed with. And so it's always a great reminder on my birthday, like, oh yeah, Paul.
Well,
The
thanks.
cautionary tale, but
Yes.
also the I have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. And it's a story that you get to tell. It's your story too, like it's my best story I have, if we're telling good stories and, it's your story too. So I don't know if that counts for anything, but.
Yo,
Do you ever get together? I mean, obviously you and JC are still good buds, but anybody else on your team or a beast? Are you still close with anybody?
I'm still close with the beast. Like I don't see her, but we talk every now and then, mostly just through social media. But I reach out like
Annually.
August 27th every year for my non-death anniversary. And but yeah, I'm mostly close with JC. I mean, Ivan, we talk every now and then on social media.
Tato's your boy.
Tato, of course, I'm still very close with. But yeah, I've like my whole team, like Alan. I mean, every now and then. It's not like we're estranged, but I haven't stayed in like great touch with everybody. And actually, talking to you in this conversation, I was like, man, I gotta reach out to these guys because I love them. Like we all became very fast friends on that mountain. And then on top of that, they did so much for me that day too. But even had that not happened, like we were all just very close, we were in the trenches together.
Well, it's funny when you do a show. I mean, I forgot Abisa's name, and I talked to her like 10 days ago, I think. It was through Facebook. But I've forgotten half the people from Yellowstone, and it's nothing
Right.
personal. It's
Yeah.
it's you're on to the next thing, and suddenly you're like, who was that again?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, would be normal that you aren't necessarily in touch with anybody.
Sure.
I ran across something on Facebook with Chachi and Yuka, and I was like, "Oh my God, how are they?"
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they're
well,
doing
of course,
great.
yeah. I'm very close with them, and we would see them every now and then when they came to LA when we lived in LA. So yeah, I'm still in touch with the Dudesons and Chachi, Steve-O, obviously. Chuck Liddell, I've seen a couple times, like through Steve, but like we've like we're still bros, me and Chuck Liddell.
I still have my Chuck Liddell action figure.
Good. Yeah, we bought it for like a video that we never shot anything with.
Yeah, I just bought one just because I was like, "Oh, this is just too funny." That
Nice. I wonder if
one of
I
our
have
cast
one
members,
then. I think I have the other one. We bought one. We bought them for like we were gonna shoot something with it. I thought, and never ended up doing that. Anyway,
it's funny. I don't have many of those kind of things. I there's a doll company that what do you kind of a GoFundIt thing or whatever,
mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm trying to make this. It was a guy who made well, think of a Barbie doll, but the doll's proportions are like a normal girl, not
Mm-hmm.
Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what a great thing. So I've got the initial doll just because I thought it was really cool what
because you
that guy did.
contributed to the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And, I was $50 or something like that. And so for that, I've got the original doll. And then, that I think was before our mountain climbing show. And so because I had that, I thought, oh, maybe because you bought it, I went online and bought one because I thought, oh, this is kind of funny. And so I've still got Chuck Liddell, in his package.
Nice.
So awesome.
So anyway, well, and how are you doing in you said Tucson, right?
Yeah.
Tucson. Yeah, we're coming up on almost a year here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we moved here last summer. We love it. I don't know if your world ever brings you out to Tucson or Phoenix, but if you ever do, we got a bed for you. But yeah, we bought a house out here. We're kind of out in the desert. Like we're 20 minutes from downtown, but like when you're here, like you're nowhere. You're out in the desert, and it's really nice, really peaceful. Mm-hmm. We love our house.
I did a movie there in 1995. So gosh, 30 years ago.
Did you film at Old Tucson? Did you film at that set?
No, it was a contemporary movie. We actually, the company I worked for, we did two movies next to each other. So like we had rooms in the hotel. So me and my production manager had one room, and then it was down that hall. And then the other production manager had a production coordinator, and then their offices were in hotel rooms down that other side. And gosh, it was Pam Dauber, who was Nancy Drew when I was a kid, and married to Mark Harmon, and who else? Oh my God, Bo.
Derek.
No, it's a male actor. His Bridges, Bo Bridges was in the movie. Sure. So that was who was in our movie, and then Janine, one of the 90210 girls, was in the other movie. So we were sort of like two movies all working at the same time, and so we were basically just both shooting there in Greater Tucson.
Wow.
Well, it has grown a lot since then. I know it's changed a lot since I first came out here for college a while back. But yeah, it's fun. It's very small town feeling. You bump into people everywhere you go. So it's just, you feel really kind of connected.
Yeah, we love it.
Which is lovely.
Cool. Uh-oh. Yeah, I think I tried to go to Biosphere 2, which I think was closed back then. It was kind of between when it opened, and I think there's actually things that are happening there now. But there was a dead zone in there. And so I was there then, and I went up to the mountain. But this was like in November, October, so it wasn't very, like, I don't think anything was going on. It was just like, oh, look pretty. And then I went to that, the place that's got all the planes.
Oh, yeah.
The big plane
graveyard there. Yeah.
I drove past that the other night. It's crazy how many planes are over there.
Yeah, it's wild. Because they just don't really rust or break down.
Yeah, they don't rust or break down. And I guess they're ready. If we go to war, we put an engine in those planes and they're ready to go. Like it's not a graveyard as much as a storage facility. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. Apparently they're like they're old, but like in a pinch, when we're like, if we're like, oh fuck, it's World War III, over there's like 1,000 planes just ready to get an engine and go.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was, I remember in the early 80s, there was, tensions in the Middle East, and Reagan retrofitted a couple of our battleships. Um, and I didn't think much of it back then, but looking now, it's like, I don't know if you ever watched that. Was it Pacific Rim was the name of the movie? Where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to take the Iowa back out from the Los Angeles harbor and put it to use. Yeah, I suppose. It's awfully old.
Yeah. Yeah. How often do you build a new battleship though? Yeah. It's not like the Camry where there's like a new model every year,
I don't know. The military is kind of indulgent that way.
But I don't think they do it. Like I don't know how often they build.
They certainly do with planes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always working new models into the equation.
I hope they're working on it. Well, all right, Brian. I feel like I could talk to you forever. This has been a real pleasure to.
Thanks. It's always good to see you too.
Yeah, you too, man. And I got to have you on this podcast again sometime because I wanted to talk to you about like the Amazing Race and the like reality competition kind of era of your life. Because that's fascinating too. And we watched some of those shows now. We like The Challenge. You watched The Challenge at all? You know of The Challenge?
I know of it, but no.
Okay. But you never worked on The Challenge. Anyway, just like
guilty,
the logistics of these kinds
pleasure.
of shows, I just would love to pick your brain about like what's going on behind the scenes. I'm sure you'd have great insight. But anyway.
Amazing Race is really fascinating. I mean, it's changed now, but the logistics and the work behind the scenes are somewhat similar because they are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like making a movie. You're going to have cameras and dollies and lights and track and a caterer, and you're going to have all those things. So Amazing Race is very similar in that way, but they've made it smaller to be more economical now, I think. But the logistics behind that are what made me end up doing a lot of international shows because I just don't get scared by those things.
Right.
I interviewed to do a show in Morocco with a famous Mexican actor, and it was going to be like, Derbez on vacation, and the producers had never shot there. And they're like, it's halfway around the world and you don't seem bothered by this. And I'm like, well, it's a quarter of the way around the world. If we were shooting in Southern India, that'd be halfway. And to me, what you're describing is Tuesday. Like, I understand that you have concerns. I don't know what they are. We're shooting in Morocco. We can have security for him. People shoot there all the time, and we'll be fine. And what else can I do for you?
Yeah.
and they were bothered by the fact that I wasn't like very nervous
weren't
about the whole
bothered.
thing. I'm like, it's Tuesday, man. Like,
Yeah.
But I got a guy.
Sure.
And
You
of course,
got
his name
guys.
is Muhammad.
I mean, you really are like a CIA agent. Like if you had to be on the run internationally,
You're
you
prepped.
know who to call and where to go and what you need to pull it off, He's going to pull out a suitcase full of passports and money in different currencies.
There's my money stash.
There it is.
Hey.
See?
I
Jason
love
Bourne. Jason Bourne.
that. Gotta stay ready to pivot.
It's kind of funny when I see those movies where they open a drawer and there's, now I don't have stacks of 10,000 in each currency. I got enough bucks to maybe take a taxi somewhere.
There you
Right.
go. Could get you out of a pinch.
But it's funny because I see those and I'm like, I got a drawer like that.
Yeah. You're like,
It just isn't as full.
right. Oh my God. Yeah, it's so cool. What a life. What a life you've lived, Brian. I'm honored to be a little part of it, because you've done a lot and it seems like you're just getting started.
Oh, God bless you.
Like, please, no.
Given how few shows that are happening right now, I just like to be able to work again.
Good. Yeah, it's wild. Crazy. But all right, we should.
Well, thank you so
cut
much
this
for
thing
having
out.
me. I appreciate
Dude.
it.
Thank you.
yeah, it's so great talking to you.
My first one.
Oh,
Never done one of these
nice.
before.
Dude, you're a pro.
Aced it. Well, we'll let you know if we're back in Burbank. We can meet for more Indian food.
Oh, please.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't
let's
been
do it.
back since we moved, so
No.
we're due.
We are due.
We'll keep you posted.
Well, Well, and likewise, I've got a spare room here too. So
Oh,
Awesome.
fuck yeah.
if you don't have another place, you got one here.
Appreciate that.
You're the best, Brian. Well, as always, I feel very lucky to have you in my life, and I love you, and thank you, and bless you.
Definitely
Thank
bless you.
Well, I love you as well, and please give your best to my folks, your folks.
We will.
I'll call your folks. I'll tell them. I'll give them my best.
We'll send the word to Rose and Werner. You say
Yes, we
hello.
will.
Yeah.
All right. Love you, Brian. Talk soon.
Take
Love you
good
too.
care.
Peace,
care.
brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.